Right. God bless us, everyone.
Yeah. Keep our fingers crossed. Hey.
Hello, and welcome to Home is a Human Right listening series. Home is a Human Right is produced by a collective of volunteers within Mutual Aid Housing Strategies, an affiliate of Mutual Aid NYC, with the guidance and support of citywide leaders of the movement for housing justice. We are convening in the midst of mass death. Some 500,000 people have died from COVID across the United States. We are months into a new administration that continues a legacy of organized abandonment of migrant peoples, the working poor, people in prisons and detention centers, teachers, nurses, families, and those living without homes. The experience of not having a home has become the norm for nearly 100,000 New Yorkers, and as many as 1.2 million people are currently on the brink of eviction. The median home price in Manhattan and much of Brooklyn is more than $1 million. One baby in every 100 who is born in a New York hospital is brought home to a shelter. The rate of homelessness in the city today is at least double what it was a decade ago, a rate we have not seen since the Great Depression. 20% of the city's hotels operate as homeless shelters, and the city spends upward of $3.2 billion per year on the homelessness problem without solving it. And in family shelters, among heads of households, 93% identify as Black or Brown. And right now, over 200,000 eviction cases are pending in New York City's courts. We are joined today by Ms. Flowers, who has been an activist, artist, and community leader for her entire life. She started organizing with the Scranton Youth chapter of the NAACP, marching with Dr. Martin Luther King on Washington, D.C. in 1963. Back then, they were fighting for jobs, justice, and housing, and she's still fighting for jobs, justice, and housing. For the last 3 years, Ms. Flowers has been a leader with Vocal New York, fighting for a home for every New Yorker. Although she is most famous for confronting the mayor at the gym, her role at Vocal New York goes much deeper. Flowers has also helped organize and run meetings and actions, as well as lobbies elected officials on a local, state, and federal level. A Brooklyn resident of over 35 years, she's an active performer in the New York City theater, TV, and film scene. We're also joined today by Winsome Pendergrass, a community organizer, home health aide, domestic worker, and tenant in Brownsville, Brooklyn. She immigrated to the United States from Jamaica and has been fighting for workers and tenants' rights ever since as a member of New York Communities for Change and Housing Justice for All. When Winsome isn't out causing trouble and fighting to cancel rents, she loves to read, garden, and spend time with her granddaughter. Hi, you two. Welcome.
I'm so good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Greetings.
So there's a lot going on right now. And just yesterday, there was a really big event. Ms. Flowers, if you want to kind of tell us about what was going on yesterday.
Yesterday. Today?
Or today? Yesterday?
Today we went to City Hall.
Today, yeah. What day is
Like,
it?
did I lose a day?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Today,
last
I
Tuesday.
did.
today we went to City Hall. Well, across from City Hall to 250 Broadway, where the council members have their offices. And I understand Hasty has a place there as well, who's the speaker of the assembly. Um, and we were fighting there to get this intro 146 passed, which was introduced by Steve Levin, I think 3 years ago. But it asks that the city vouchers we have for housing come up to market level. Um, the first vouchers we had, I took mine with me today. It's right here in my folder. The first voucher we had was called a link voucher. See this?
Okay.
And I took this to the first hearing I ever did for Vocal was with Steve Levin and Jumaane Williams when they were co-chairs of the housing committee for the city council. Okay. They had never seen it. They didn't even know what was in it. And I said, do you know it says, yeah. I said, you can have it. And they said, oh, don't you need it? I said, no, it has to be renewed every 3 months. So it says up here, commencement 8/8 and expiration 11/06. So every 3 months, this had to be renewed. And you had to go through this rigmarole of just to get it. You had to get your birth certificate. You had to have a psychiatric evaluation by a psychiatrist. You had to have a social psych evaluation by your caseworker or social worker in the system. You had to have a physical exam, and then what else? You had to get your birth certificate. I live in Texas. That took about a month.
Mhm.
And your proof of your income. I'm retired on Social Security. I had to go get my benefit letter, and then you have to do that every month. Every month while you're living in the shelter, you have to go back to Social Security and get the same letter again. But the killing part of this link voucher, not that the rent was only $1,268, that's the allocation. And the way the program works is I pay a third of my income as an elder and a person on Social Security retirement benefits, but there are also people on disability, etc. But on the very first page, it says disclaimer. The City of New York is implementing this program in order to provide assistance to eligible individuals, including rental assistance of specified amounts. However, this rental assistance program is subject to and contingent upon funding appropriations. In implementing this new rental assistance program, the City of New York is not providing a payment guarantee of any kind to any person or entity. The City of New York is not entering into any contract or lease with, nor is it making any promise to tenants, landlords, or any other person or entity in connection with this program. So they give with one hand, they snatch back with the other. So yeah, of course, when you get in the shelter system, you're like all excited. All I have to do is get all this paperwork together and apply, and I'm going to get a voucher program, which will help me get an affordable apartment for me because I only have to use one third of my income. And we have gotten that changed. It used to be you had to use 70% of your income. And Reginald T. Brown, who's on the board now, oh, I just got elected to the board of Vocal New York. I'm like so excited. And he went to every legislator and said, "Can you live on $12 a day?" Because that's what his disability, I think it was, amount left him with after he paid his rent. $12 a day. And they all said, no, of course not. And he said, well, that's what you're asking me to do. And they changed it. So now it's one third of your income for any of these programs. But at the same time, they turned around and on the first page say, ah, we're not responsible for this money. And as long as there's money, you'll get paid. But other than that, no. And so every time we go to an owner or a landlord, they would go, well, do you have a program? We don't take programs, which is illegal. That's source of income discrimination. But when you go to HRA and report it, I think they have 5 lawyers for 100,000 cases. So they are severely backlogged. They are hamstringed, as you would say, because they say one thing and then they do another, or they don't have the ability. I always say they're paper tigers because there's no one to stop them from saying, this person can't have the apartment because they're using the program. And we got the analogy from someone else. When you pay your phone bill, they don't ask where you got the money from.
Right.
So why is it important to them where the money comes from when we pay our rent?
Right.
Uh, and it's for 1 year anyway. You sign a 1 year lease, and they changed it now, so that now with the new program, City for HEPS, landlords kept saying you have so many programs. Make it one program. We got the City for HEPS voucher, right?
What is and for those who are joining us who don't know what the voucher program is, what's FEPS?
The City for HEPS means that City for HEPS. It's anybody living in New York City
Mm-hmm.
who has a reason, a just cause, meaning they're on Social Security, they're disabled, they're coming out of a shelter,
Right.
basically coming out of a shelter, They're going to help you get permanent housing, and you're required to pay 1/3 of your income
Got it.
to ensure that you can stay there. But guess what the big kicker was? The new amount for this new voucher, wrapping all of them up into one, was now called City for Helps, and they gave you $1,246 a month for rent. And no apartment is available in any borough for that amount. We know this.
Right.
Everybody knows this. But you have to go every day. Every day you have to go look for an apartment, go through New York connections. And now the hardest part is most of these shelters do not have Wi-Fi. But every potential landlord or owner wants an email address. They're not calling you. They want to get on their computer and go through this stuff and then send you some information. It's or an appointment. It's really crazy.
Right.
So I say they're always giving with one hand and taking back with the other, and it makes it so difficult, which is why we were very happy to get several laws changed in favor of tenants. The big day that happened was July 14th, 2018, when we were in Albany, and the Assembly and the Senate voted for 8 of 9 bills in favor of tenants' rights for us, mostly in New York City, but also some for the rest of the state. And
Am I so happy that it happened in 2018? Can you imagine if we were still fighting in 2020, they would have screwed us over and they would have said, oh, we can't vote on these laws.
They did.
Yes, but we got it done.
Mm-hmm.
And Liz Krueger, who's been a senator for 17 years, now 19, said it was the best day in the Senate for her ever because she had been working for decades for these tenants' rights. And they had stopped them and stymied them at every turn. But we had it was the first time I was ever there and saw both houses vote for we the people and not stand with the rich politicians, the rich corporate Wall Street interests. It was great.
What was your impression of that time, Winsome? Especially given your history of living in New York and paying rent and
First of all, let me say, home is the center of life.
yeah.
You know, it is a refuge from the grind of work, the fight for a space to stand in the subway, to skip across the garbage in Brooklyn and then to go home. You know, we can close the door, we can sigh. Home is where it's a wellspring of a person's being, of a personhood. And home is where our identity takes root, blossoms, where our dreams and culture and everything is nourished. And after we come inside and we might get ourselves a glass of water or a glass of wine, we can close the door, play some Barry White, make love. Let our hair down, let loose.
Because we have a key. We have our own key.
So that's home. That's home. And every living human being deserves that.
Right.
And our kids deserves that.
Mm-hmm.
As I said to you before when we were going through all this, and I told you that seeing the film Claudine in 1977 really had an impact on me. I think it was a setup, but I didn't know I was going to be in New York. You see, I'm preaching now like a Baptist. So when I get to New York, and I happened to be looking for an apartment. I get an apartment and I found out that there are so many clauses and loopholes to keep us bound and to hold us. It's as if they come together in the middle of the night and they said, let's make some rules and some laws to keep them right there that they can't move. Because without a home, you can't do anything else.
Right.
You can't thrive. You cannot succeed. So we need home. We not only need a home, we need a comfortable home.
Right.
And we need a home that makes our family feel good about themselves. Our children can say, yes, I can do that. I can be the next Michelle Obama. I can be the next Vice B. I can be the next AOC. I can be the next Nico.
Tish James. Tish James.
Tish James, you name it. Condoleezza Rice. It's the possibility is endless.
But
Right.
people
But what
forget 1 in 10 school children are living in shelters. At 1 in 10. That's a horrible statistic.
right. So when I really look into how the housing institution is structured, you can see the disparity there. And you can see that they don't even have us in mind other than to say, let's keep taking from them, let's keep taking out of their pockets. And by taking out of their pockets and making it so difficult for them to, if you have to pay three checks for 1 month's rent, something is goddamn wrong with that.
Very wrong. Very
Three
very
of your checks has to go towards your rent. You still have the Metro card. You still have medication. You still have your kids to take care of. You still have food. Food is the next precious commodity to keep to nourish our bodies and our souls and our mind and to keep us going. So as you asked about witnessing July 14, 2018, it was glorious, it was wonderful. But for people who are joining for the first time, I don't want them to think that it was just an easy walk.
Right.
January of 2018, we went to Albany and we got it passed. It was. I have met people who told me that they have been fighting those very laws for 30 years, 35
Decades.
years.
Decades.
So it's one of the biggest, it is gigantic, humongous win. It is something that will go down in the history books, that there were people of every generational ages that were fighting that fight. So I jumped in almost to the end, but I am so grateful that I met people who were there before. And let me shout out to some people who did have some sleepless nights, both from NYCC and the Housing Justice for All and VOC. You see, I'm going to get myself in trouble if I start calling people, but let me say the coalition that comes together. But I will call two persons' names, which was Sia Weaver, Pete Nagy, Andrea Shapiro. I don't know where they get their strength from. I don't know where they get all that wisdom from. Supported by the other people. And
Destinia Glover.
Destinia Glover. It was, I remember her crying. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't know is that leading up to the last minute, Governor Cuomo refused to meet with us. He has never met with us. We've been going there for years and years. Every Tuesday, we are taking off work. We're going to Albany. And he refused to meet with us. And at one point, coming down to the last day, the coalition started holding out and said, nope, we need to have a conversation. And then he was like, okay, I'll give you 5 or I'll give you 4 or something like that. And then they said, okay, we need to send 3 people inside. So they said, okay, Winsome, you're going to be one. I think Rebecca was supposed to be the next person. Somebody else was supposed to go. And then they were saying, they called and they were saying, are you guys ready? And at the last minute, we said, screw you, we ain't meeting with you. And
we didn't need them.
We refused, because if we were coming there every Tuesday for the past 2-3 years, we were rocking the buildings with all our chants and our sound and our songs. He never, I know Carl Lacey came once on the $1 million staircase and he said, oh, this is what's going to happen. We're going to take care of tenants and da-da-da-da. But he didn't even have the dignity of saying, you know what, let me go sit with them for 5 minutes and hear what they're saying. Yes, we have been putting a lot of letters, on his desk and all of that. But he didn't treat us with the dignity of saying, let's meet with these people. Right. We had so many things going all over the state of New York, from Buffalo to Long Island. We had testimony days. We have so many people were crying and telling their stories to the assembly people and senators who were willing to sit and listen and to get a feel of what the tenant was going through. And he just brushed us off. Yes, we disturbed a lot of his birthday parties, so he's pissed. I guess that's what was happening. We disrupted a lot of his dinners, and we disrupted a lot of his little token meetings that his friends were giving him some little awards. So and yes, what he did too, he threatened a lot of the union people that they should not back us. But we did what we did. We pulled the fight. We pull it out. We pull it out of our hats. We put ourselves on the line for the people who could not make the journey, the tenants that could not make the journey to Albany.
Right.
There were people who were in wheelchair. They were in their beds. They were disabled to the point where they can't move. But the landlord was beating on their door and ready to throw them out in the street. But we did it.
Yes, and we joined together. One of the biggest things we've done so far also is have an upstate downstate coalition, to have a tenant owner coalition, to have public housing. We're fighting for everyone because everyone deserves a decent place to live for a fair price.
Right. There's this
when I moved to New York in 1966, this is how the Upper West Side got so wonderful. New buildings had some kind of rule that it was 80-20. 80% was market rent, but 20% was low income. Solid. And that's how they populated the Upper West Side. So you didn't know who had the lower rent apartments, except they probably didn't have a terrace or something, but you didn't know because a resident is a resident. A taxpayer is a taxpayer. Once you're in and stabilized, you can do everything. But without stabilization, with people on the street, under the bridges, in the parks till they started closing the parks, in the subway till they started closing the subway. But that was where they lived because they had no other recourse. That was one of the laws that got changed. You can't charge 3 months rent. You can only have 1 month's rent and 1 month's security. That was one of the laws that got changed. Right. And there's no sunset in them. This was what these corrupt REBE, New York, Real Estate Board of New York, we call it REBE New York. These were the kind of laws they had got enacted in their favor against tenants, driving us from the city. But if you lived in the city, you were raised here, you have a right to be here. I always say, why don't you go by the voting records? Where did that person vote for 20 years? Wherever they voted, they have a right to come back to that neighborhood. They have a right to live in that neighborhood. They shouldn't be gentrified out. There should always be a fair housing thing, because in 63, when we marched with Dr. Martin Luther King, as I said, it was a jobs, justice, and fair housing. But in 64, we got the Civil Rights Act. In 64, we got the Housing Rights Act. And then in 65, we got the Voting Rights Act, which still isn't right to this day, which now we have the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And we're going to get that through. The point being, when we stand together, we're like that fist. We're no longer like this. We're that fist. And we're not turning back, and we're not going back. We have stood and fought too long. Right. And that's what makes us strong. I love it.
Right. So right now, COVID has changed everything. And people who have never imagined themselves ever not being able to pay their rent are suddenly unable to pay their rent. How did you two, with your legacies of activism and doing the on the ground work with for housing justice, how do you talk about this reality of all of these looming evictions, and that the idea that it's not just, I think one of our previous guests, Selena Trowell from Vocal, framed it as not necessarily just eviction, but also that it's like pending homelessness, living without a home. So I wonder if the two of you can talk about how things are shifting and what are the sort of demands now that so many people can't pay their rent.
It is, before COVID, every time we meet, we make a point to let people know that at that time there was 92,000 homeless people in the city of New York,
Right.
and that was bad.
And homelessness
We don't
increased
need
41% under Cuomo. Under Cuomo, it has increased 41%. So, well, it's now the worst since the Depression, and unemployment is the worst since the Depression. Pardon me. Go ahead.
so we always try to educate the masses, because sometimes people will look and say, oh, the reason why that person is homeless is because they're lazy, or they want something for free, or they don't want to pay their rent, but they don't even understand the politics behind it. And I'm not talking about the mom and pop homeowner. I'm not talking about Uncle Charlie, Aunt Sylvia, or Shakira, or whoever. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about these honchos who have 5 buildings in Brooklyn, 8 in Queens, 11 in Manhattan, and they are real piranhas. That's what they are. They are piranhas.
Right.
It's about time for them to put people first. And I'm talking about Albany now. Our fight is with Albany. Every person in Albany should really put their voters first. We deserve to be treated with respect. One of the reasons why these developers and people who own those big corporations, why they do us what they do us, is because they're allowed to do it, because Governor Cuomo does not speak out. As I said before, he has never addressed homelessness. He has never addressed tenants' right. I don't even know if it's in his vocabulary to address tenants' right. But he's expecting New Yorkers to vote for him every time an election comes around. I don't know what he's thinking now, but I know he was trying to force himself into a 4th term. And it's as if we have amnesia or something, and we don't remember that he does nothing for us while sitting there. Right now, it is estimated 1.3 million people who are going to be tenants who are going to be suffering come May.
1.3 million.
Yes. 1.3 million tenants
Facing
in
homelessness.
New York City are going to be affected when the moratorium is lifted in May. Now, they passed a budget. Sometimes they think that when they pass the budget, they're doing us a favor. And they passed the budget, maybe by night or whatever. And they passed the budget for 100 million. But they only
175 million.
Yeah, but they only
for the state, 175 million.
Spend 7 million out of it, and they make it so
billions,
hard.
Not billions, billions.
Billions. but they make it so hard for tenants, even to fill out the paperwork. It is so hard. And then when you do fill it out, all you're getting is rejection, rejection, rejection. This past Tuesday, again, I made one of my favorite trip to one of my favorite places, which is called Albany, because we are sending out the message, we are serving notice on Albany that we're coming back because the work is not done. Right. Tenants are still suffering. People are suffering, and the landlords are lining up, waiting for the courts to be open so they can boot people out on the street. But as long as we have strength in our bodies, we're not going to let that happen.
Right.
And we won one other strong proviso, is that in housing court now you get a lawyer for free. That has prevented like 90% of the evictions before the pandemic, once we got that law into place.
So before the pandemic, y'all were able to win
90% of the cases with a lawyer, with that free lawyer.
Right. Wow.
And remember, the moratorium is on single homeowners as well. You know, people living in their own homes. It wasn't just tenants. It was for single homeowners and small homeowners. Nobody big, like uh, any of these guys, you know, Helmsley Spear or anything else, or Starrett City, who would never take our vouchers. Um, the point being that we're in this love together. We're stuck in the rut together.
Right.
And when we got the law passed, when I was evicted, I lost my rent stabilization and I had a preferential rent. That's one of the laws that was changed. And many of the legislators told us, I have a preferential rent. You helped me
Right.
keep in my apartment.
Can you
Yes.
briefly explain the preferential rent for those who are joining us who don't know what the history of preferential rent was or what it was just in general?
Preferential rent is when a landlord rents you an apartment below the market rate.
Like you.
So yeah, I went into the hospital because I had a preferential rent. And as I said before, when you have to spend 3 of your paychecks per month for your rent, that was what I was doing. You know, being a Jamaican, I was doing 3 jobs and looking for the 4th. But then my body got out of whack. My blood pressure was so high. I worked in the hospital, 12-hour shift, came home like 7 o'clock in the morning, get a little sleep, cook some food, jump back on the train, go travel all the way to Elmer's. But this particular Sunday morning, my body said, I'm not going with you.
Wow.
And I fell out. I passed out. My 2 bottom numbers could be the Powerball. My 2 numbers for the blood pressure would have been the winning number for the Powerball. And I ended up in the hospital. And after coming out of the hospital, that's when I really make a dedicated effort to say, you know what, I got to fight this with all that I got. So they give you the apartment at market, below the market rate. And you are like, yay, nice 2-bedroom. And it's only $1,200. But at that time, they had Governor Cuomo, or not even Governor Cuomo, but even governors before him, they cooked up this deal that they could give themselves a 20% increase. So it doesn't matter whether you were doing a 2-year or a 1-year lease, you just see your rent just keep leaping. It was just leaping, because at that time they had the right to do it. And that was one of the things, one of the great victory that we have, that they cannot do that anymore.
Right.
Also, when you leave out of an apartment and they are renting it to someone else, they cannot give themselves the 20% increase. Can you imagine? They could have just thrown 20% on it.
Wow.
We still have
anytime a tenant left the apartment for any reason. So if they could get three or 4 people to leave the apartment, because whatever they did, let the bathroom ceiling fall, not give you heat, not give you hot water or gas, whatever reason you left, the next tenant gave them a 20% increase in the rent.
And all they had to do was to do a little cosmetic touch to the apartment.
Wow.
So that it looks inviting when they show it to you. And we were really suffering, but thank God we got that under control. We still have a big one now called the good cause eviction that we are really have to be pushing on the door for. Also the MCI. The MCI is another stranglehold.
What does that stand for?
Major capital
improvement.
Like when you get a new stove or refrigerator,
they tack it onto your rent.
Forever.
They fix the elevator. If they fix the elevator 6 times for the year, they tack it onto your rent.
The furnace.
They put in a new window, they tack it onto your rent. If the linoleum lifted and they come and fix it, they tack it onto your rent.
So not only is this happening, it's also with the right now where people can't even pay their rent.
Can't even pay their rent. And whatever they're coming with now for as relief, it is for back rent. For people who owed back rent before the COVID pandemic hit us.
Right.
So tenants are still out there in limbo. There is nothing out there to help the tenants to move forward. There is nothing out there to help the tenants to really breathe and for their family to really live a peaceful life.
And with the good cause, this is out of New York City, specifically. People who do not live in New York City have almost no rent protections whatsoever.
Exactly.
So the landlord can
boroughs, outside of the 5 boroughs, there is no protection.
The landlord can come and say, you got 3 days to move. You have 10 days to move. The rent is double next week. It's next month. It's $100 more next month. You have no recourse until we started fighting together. There was nothing for them. So people were really suffering, and many cities outside of New York City do not have shelters. In New York, there's a law that says anyone who asks for a bed will be given a bed. It is mandated that if we go to they send us to a shelter, we get there, one way or another, we will be kept indoors. We might sit in a chair for a day or two, but until they do the intake, et cetera, and so forth. But on February 28th, when I lost the appeal for my apartment when I was evicted, the legal aid lady said, where do you want to go? I said, I don't know. She said, you want to go to a shelter? I said, I don't know. She said, yes, you do. I said, oh, yeah. Okay. Where do you want to go? The Brooklyn or Bronx? I said, or the Bronx. I said, I live in Brooklyn. She said, okay. I was sent to 160. There's only 2 intake shelters in the city for women, single women. You are sent to 116 Williams in Brooklyn or Franklin Avenue in the Bronx. Well, I know about the help center I was sent to in Brooklyn. It's run by Governor Cuomo's sister, Maria Cuomo Coles. She's the director.
Wow.
Someone just told me a few days ago that upstate in the Bronx is also a help center.
And this is, when you say help center, you mean Help USA?
Yes. And they told me he's invested in all of them.
Yeah.
Because when they gave his tax returns, I don't know, a year before, he only had one charitable contribution. As rich as that man is, he gave $11,000 to Help Centers USA.
So we need to blow the lid off this now. We need to do some real groundwork. We need to find out all the people who are benefiting from these help centers and these shelters. We want to know how much they made during COVID.
Right, because, just to
we know how much Wall Street made. Okay, we know how much Wall Street made.
Right.
Wall Street until the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, Wall Street had made $77 billion, and now it's $1 trillion because this state will not tax money. They call it revenue generated by money. They won't tax it. They've gutted the tax laws. The other thing about me is I worked on Wall Street for 20 years. So I could sit there and listen to the accountant say, don't pay the government, give us the money. We'll show you how to hide the money. We'll show you what to do. This is what you do. Okay? You're going to go over to Pictet Sea in Switzerland. We're going to open $1 million account for you over there that has a numbered account. One reason Switzerland is so rich also is because if it's a numbered account and nobody knows the number, they keep the money. Yeah. Okay. So they gutted our tax laws. We had a stock transfer tax until 1981. From 1981 to date, we are giving the investors a 100% rebate. So we're talking pennies on the dollar, but you do know there's like 1 trillion trades every day. So imagine it's like 1 million at least, I think, made a day or something. But the point is, we missed $14 billion from 1981 to now by giving them the 100% rebate, giving the money back to them. The second thing, the inheritance tax. I tell everybody, remember when Jackie Kennedy's kids had to sell some stuff to pay the inheritance tax? We always had an inheritance tax. They gutted that. So they don't have to pay that. Capital gains. When you make a certain amount of money, when you have an increase on your investment, that's a capital gains tax. They gutted that. The pied a terre, meaning you have many residences. What does 183 days mean in income tax? That's where your residence is. You spend 183 days in New York, you're a New York resident. You pay New York income and New York City, New York State income tax, as well as your income tax. We used to have a residence, a right to work tax. People who lived outside of New York and worked in New York had a tax to pay. They gutted that. So they've taken billions and billions of our tax dollars, given them to the most wealthy. And so they do believe in welfare, but only for the wealthy. I'm like, this has got to stop. We know
Right.
it has got to stop. And we know that if we get these things straightened out, we will have the $50 billion a year we need to do everything. Every program, every social program, and with no more lies. Remember, we voted for the lottery because they said the money would go to education, and then we have no schools? The schools fail because they lied? So they do the bait and switch all the time. That's a political way, but we've had it with them. And now we know they say, as we say to them, we voted, we organized, we voted, and now we flip the Senate to blue. We flip the city council to blue. And even though de Blasio and Cuomo like to act like they're Republicans, we, the people who voted for them, are saying, no mas, no more. We're not taking this crap from you anymore. You have to do what is best for all of the people right now because we're not taking it no more. We fight because we're right and we know you're wrong and you can't lie to us anymore. We're not stupid. We can
Well,
add.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's also when the two of you or either of you are proposing that we tax the rich, what is the thing that people often say that's against taxing the rich?
Go on, tell them, Winston.
Well,
They're going to leave.
our most famous governor says, I can't tax them. If I tax them, they're going to leave New York. And we are like, hey, hold up. There's only one New York. There's only one New York. It don't matter where you travel to. They are not leaving. Because they want to parade with their friends. They want to show how mighty and how powerful they are. They want to flaunt their money and their riches. So if the governor of New Jersey can tax millennials who are living in New Jersey, why can't you?
Mm-hmm.
We don't see
And
the
what kind of
logic.
crap is that?
We
Yeah,
don't
go
see
ahead.
the logic of you saying you can't tax the richest people and you taxing the poorest of the poor among you. It just does not make sense. I don't know which college he went to, but it does not make sense. I need to know the college he went to and who taught him that in his economic class. I don't see it. Hey, I might be the worst mathematician in the world, but I still know that 0 from 0 leave 0. So why can't you tax Jeff Bezos? Okay, he is so rich.
Amazon. Oh, I hate them.
Took to the street.
Right.
We took to the street, or else Amazon would have had all of the government land over in Queens. We took to the street. We were out there in the rain, in the sunshine, in the snow, and we shouted and we held up placards and we said, no, it's not going to happen. You're not going to give him all these tax break.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was
And
because of us.
the people came from Washington and told us,
Yeah.
That Seattle was one of the best places until Amazon got there. And now it's one of the worst. They have people living in their cars, people living in tent cities. It was horrible. They wouldn't give them any taxes. And when they went to the city council said, "Well, at least pay. You're not paying for the cops, the firemen, the streets, the schools, all any of the infrastructures that run a city. You're not paying for anything. Give us $261 for every person in the city." They said no. You can't make us. So the Seattle people came here and told us the only way to handle Amazon is not to let them come.
Exactly.
Don't let them
And
come in here.
they're still slithering like a snake, and we know they have a warehouse over in Staten Island, and I understand that they're trying to get another one in Brooklyn or whatever. But as long as our coalition, and this is the thing, we have to educate people, because before, when they said they were coming to New York, they make it sound as if it was tech job. It was all tech job. Oh, tech job. You're gonna come in, and young people leaving school, they're gonna get tech job. Tech job. Okay. Ask the people who are now working in Staten Island how technical their job is.
In the warehouse.
in the warehouse.
Right.
How
They don't want
technical
to.
is your job? You can't even have it takes 15 minutes for you to walk to a bathroom for a pee break.
Yes, people are peeing in bottles.
Yes.
They don't want you to take a break. They don't want you to take a break. They won't give you adequate lunch. The workers came and stood with us and told us their work conditions. And then you rich politicians have the nerve to not grant the $15 an hour minimum wage for people to eat and to live. You have got to go.
But
you are not for the people.
We fought tooth and nail to get the $15 an hour. Every speech he made, he talking about, oh, we in New York, we paid 15. It was not you. Shut your lying mouth. It wasn't you. It was us. We marched. We lay down on the street. I remember us marching one day, and when we went to some of these manufacturers' place, and we heard the bad condition, how they were treating their workers, and we laid down on the pavement and demonstrated. But then he had to do it. He had to sign it, because we were not going to let up. And now he's patting himself on the back and taking all the glory. It's not you, dumb. Sit down. You didn't do it. We forced your hand, and we told you point blank that's what New York want, because we setting the stage for it.
We're always doing a die-in. We'll lay down in a minute in the middle of the street. We have sat in front of Cuomo's office in Albany, and nobody went in or out. They could come out, but they couldn't get in. We have laid and sat. We closed the street in front of his office last week.
We call it
and 2 weeks before that.
We slept out there nights.
We stopped the buses. It was amazing. I never stopped a bus before.
And can you imagine all the rich people that live on the 17th floor, 15th floor, 16th floor? They come out with their nice little poodle, and they have to pass us sleeping there in sleeping bags, right back. Those are the stuff we do.
But they do ask us. They do ask us, why are you here? And we tell them.
And we tell them.
And like that, did you know that?
We're sending a message to Governor Cuomo. Now, Governor Cuomo is such a terrible, deplorable person. He is...
one thing, he's no Mario. He's not his father. He's no Mario Cuomo.
And I am very, very upset with Carl Hastie, because he's too silent.
Yeah, let's talk about Carl Hastie. What's
You know what? As Ms. Flowers said before, we turned this place, we flipped Albany, and we turned it into the color that we want it to be. And it was a jubilant occasion to know that the three men in the room, sorry to refer to Andrea Stewart Cousins in that term, but as the saying goes, and it's two people who look like me and you, and we are saying, okay, now we're going to have people on our side to do the things that we sent them there to do.
Do the right thing.
The right thing.
The right thing.
Carl Hastie is not speaking up. I give kudos to Andrea Stewart Cousins. Since this whole debacle, what is going on right now, she has spoken up. We have heard her voice. We have heard her calling out the terrible behavior of our governor. I don't know if it's a secret or something that he has on Carl Hastie. Right now, we are knocking on his door. We are about to push his door in. We are marching on him. We are calling on him. We are depending on him. We're going to hold him accountable for the oath of his office to take care of his people. And I hope somebody's going to see this and let him see it and hear me say, he might know my face by now or my voice by now, to let him know, we put your ass in, we'll take it out.
Yep.
You need to start do what we send you there to do.
Right.
We need you to stand up for the tenants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't only have homeowners in your constituents. You have tenants who are being harassed by landlords. You have tenants living in apartments that's not fit for a human being to live in, with roaches and mice and mold and dripping faucets and elevators not working, and seniors who have to walk upstairs, how many flights of stairs with whatever sickness they're going through. Carl Hastie, we are putting you on notice. As I said this Tuesday, we had, I think maybe about 30 taxi cabs that our coalition put together, and we ride up there. It's the warm up. We're doing the stretching. So
okay,
we know what we do best, because we can take the buses up there, and we are now testing the waters. Thank God, a lot of people are getting vaccinated. I myself, I got my first shot.
congratulations.
Thank you. So we are now going back out, and we were greeted with at least 9 or 10, assembly people in Albany who marched with us, and they spoke. And it is always that set of people who is always with us. Mm-hmm. They came out, they joined with us, they march with us, they shout with us, dance when we are to dance, sing when we are to sing. But we are sending the message to Albany again. We're coming.
That's right.
We're coming. And we're not taking no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And also that we must congratulate Hastie. We do have to congratulate him. So thus far, he's been a little quiet, but bills have been passing in the assembly. The Senate has been first, it seems, almost every bill so far, but slowly but surely, his leadership is like, we're pushing him to stand with us, because as Winsome said, what does he have? What is the advantage to stand with Cuomo?
Mm-hmm.
What is the advantage to stand with Cuomo instead of with the voters? Because they always said everything we needed, everything we wanted and asked for, it was Cuomo who said no. Now we have 2 of the 3 people in the room. We want you to know we're with you. We got your back. And don't forget, that's why we did a sleep out. We had a vigil all night last week in front of his office in the Bronx.
Right.
And we're ready to do it anytime again. We are not backing down, and we want you to stand with us, because now we have the power. Let's go for it. We did we got a meeting with him, a Zoom meeting, the week before that. And I got to say to him, we've waited for the entire history of New York State to get you here. We voted and fought and organized to get you in this position. I want you to use everything in your arsenal, every power you got, pull every plug, every string, everything you've got, do it, because now's the time, and we're counting on you. So I'm going to still tell them, I'm counting on you. Please don't change back to red. Stay blue. Stay true blue.
Yeah. True. And I don't want this session to end without saying this. There are some people in the Democratic machinery of Brooklyn I'm going to call her name. Rodney Spishart made a statement the other day, and I'm going to say it was, oh, she was out of line when she likened Governor Cuomo to the exonerated five. First of all, she called them the Central Park Five. If
Wrong.
you know anything, if you have ever read a newspaper, you should have known, Rodney's, they are not to be referred to as the Central Park Five. That was a label on them. They are now the exonerated five.
Right.
But how can you put the treatment of those five young boys? They were boys. They were school age boys with a privileged white man. How dare you? Something went wrong on the left side of your brain. Then she even goes further to mention the name of Emmett Till.
My God.
Is she crazy? Emmett Till, did you even read a clip of what happened to Emmett Till?
14 years
He was
old.
alive at the age of 14. How he was taken by force out of his uncle's house, beaten.
Tortured for
His
hours.
body is tortured, mutilated. And now you're going to put Governor Cuomo in the same line with Emmett Till's name. Shame on you.
For shame.
Shame on you.
Shame.
As a black woman, I am not making it about color, but it is what it is. For you to say what Governor Cuomo is going through now is lightened onto Emmett Till. Something is wrong with that. And I need her to make an apology and to say, her description was wrong. Don't
Yes,
insult
definitely.
us. Do not insult us. It is wrong. There's no way you can lighten the two
Cases that nowhere.
cases to what he is going through now. He refuses to step down. Emmett Till had nowhere to turn, no one to turn to listen to his dilemma, to plead for him. They exonerated five. They said it time and time again. We didn't do it. We're innocent. And people cast their words aside because they were just five poor black boys, and they think that they are to be thrown on the garbage heap of life. So come on, Rodney, don't get it twisted. You need to correct that, and we're going to hold you accountable to come back and apologize for that statement that you made because it is wrong.
Yes, definitely. I just want everybody to call Carl Hasty and tell him stand up with us.
Right.
Call him tomorrow.
Yes.
Stand with us. We got your back.
So
Yes.
tomorrow, would we?
Well, and he should get well. He was diagnosed with
Yes,
with the
yes, and
virus.
we hope he make a speedy recovery.
I'm
And
praying for you. I'm praying for your
Hey.
son. We need you. We need you out here.
I'm hard on him at times, but
For people
I still
calling
love him.
tomorrow, what should they say?
They should say that we know that the vote is coming and we need you to stand against Cuomo with us. Stand with us against Cuomo because we have your back. We voted for you. We got
Yeah.
everything true blue in this state. Do not
Got
let
you.
this so-called Republican governor give everything to the people who need it the least. Again, give it to the people who need it the most. Stand with us, working people, working families party, working people, people who make under 300,000 a year. Let's go there because that's where the tax base really changes. And even for them, they go, oh, back to the rich. The rich shouldn't pay more taxes. The tax base changes at 300,000, and they'll pay about $900 more a year. It's not that. We have 300 billionaires in New York who are not paying a dime to support New York in a fair way, it is not fair. It is not right. We're paying for them. Get them off our backs. Why should we working and poor people pay for the richest people to have more riches?
Mhm.
Let us be logical and
Mhm.
finally make it fair and right. 1865, 1868, 1870, we supposedly got the right to be citizens, the right to vote, to no longer be slaves. But that 13th Amendment says slavery is banned in the United States except when you've been convicted of a crime. That has to change. We are not the slaves anymore. We are voters, and we want you to stand for our rights and principles with moral integrity, the way we voted for you. Do your job.
So we are encouraging every tenant, every citizen of New York to get the numbers of your assembly person, of your senators, and you gotta, because there are small homeowners who have tenants still living with them who have not paid rent since the pandemic.
Right.
So if they don't have something set aside, their mortgages are going to be suffering. And when we are out there fighting, we are also fighting for those small homeowners too. Our fight is with them. They're in the struggle with us. They are brothers and our sisters, and we don't want to see one person lose their home.
Mhm.
That's what sometimes some people get it all mixed up that you're fighting against landlord because you want them to lose their home. We are not fighting against anyone to lose their home. We are saying landlords should treat their tenants with respect. Landlords should not harass tenants. You have landlords since the pandemic knocking on people's door, asking them to pay their rent with a credit card. Do you know what that is doing when if you put 1 or 2 months on your credit card? Where does that leave you? You have landlord telling people, take it from your retirement account. You have landlord telling people, go to the loan shark. Come on.
Mhm.
Why? And it's about time they take this profit that is going to these big hunchers and put people first. The city or the country is as rich as the resources of its people. When your people can live a decent life and we can have our dreams and our aspirations come true for ourselves and our children, and the country grows. We're asking people now not to be silent anymore, not to be quiet, but to speak up and to reach out to your representative and let them know that we need vouchers. We need real vouchers to help tenants. It is a shame that we have almost 45,000 children in shelter. Come on, that cannot be right. That
I would
can't
cry.
be under no way.
As a mother, I would cry if I had to send my child from a
To a
shelter,
shelter.
and then them not knowing when they're coming home to the same place because they move people at willy nilly, whatever
All
they
over.
want.
Exactly.
But I would also be remiss if I did not stand and say we need free Wi-Fi in all these shelters
Right.
because the children are behind in their schoolwork. Parents can't even apply for jobs or for the apartments. Everybody wants an email address, and we need
Or
free
food stamp.
Wi-Fi.
A
We
simple thing
need
as
free
food stamp. Yeah, you can't even apply for food stamp to feed your
because of
kids.
the sickness. Nobody wants you
Yes.
coming in their office.
There you go.
Everything is on the internet. So we need free Wi-Fi for everybody. We want free Wi-Fi for everybody forever
Mhm.
so that we can stay in touch. Who knows how long this sickness will be going on and the close down. But at the same time, we still have to put food on the table and a roof over our head because housing is a human right and we all deserve that dignity. We need to convert these hotels into permanent
Mhm.
living spaces.
Mhm.
They're not coming back to business without tourism.
Right.
There are a lot of things we know what to do, and I keep telling them, you don't know what to do? Call me, call Winston. We'll tell you what to do.
Right.
Yep. And we need a seat. It's about time we get a seat at the table. We need a seat at the table. For we're bringing the live, the testimony right in front of them. We're getting the stories. There are some people right now in NYCC. We have a set of people who are on fasting going 8 days now. They
Right.
call themselves the excluded workers. They are not they are undocumented people, but they got an ITIN number. They work, be it in a restaurant or they do house cleaning or whatever they do, and they pay taxes. But guess what? They
Caregiving.
got
They're
nothing.
caregivers.
Are they
Many of them.
caregivers, babysitters, and they got nothing. They did not get the $1,200 or $600.
600, 1400.
Get anything, and now they are on a hunger strike for their voices and their plea to go out there that they need to be taken care of. They need to be taken care of too.
Everyone needs to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Everyone needs housing, as I said, food to eat and a roof over their head with justice and dignity.
Liberty for all of us. Yeah.
So in closing the show, we have some work to do. Thank you so much, Winsome and Flowers, for joining us today and providing us with so much rich insight. So
Winston,
on this,
yeah, Winston has a famous song. Oh, come on, Winston.
So that's a housing
Oh,
anthem.
come on now. Come on, Winston.
yes, yeah,
After
come on.
After three.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
All the rent, all the rent is too damn high. All the rent is too damn high.
Because of Cuomo,
Because of Cuomo, the rent is too damn high. Because of Cuomo, the rent is too damn high.
Wow, the best closing out music I have ever had on any project that I've ever worked on. You two are amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm so honored to have
Takes one to know one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for making a space for the Housing Justice Coalition.
Absolutely.
And the fight continues, as my hero, Winnie Mandela, always say, the fight continues.
La luta continua.
Las luta continua.
So in closing the show, be sure to donate to Housing Justice for All at www.housingjusticeforall.org. I know that they need some money raised rather quickly. So decide what you can commit to right now, and I will give you a little bit of a moment to log in and get that going. And then be sure to tell your state reps to tax the rich and house the homeless.
Tax the rich and house the homeless.
There is a form already made on housingjusticeforall.org on the Take Action tab as well. And of course, this show isn't possible without donations from people like you. All of the money that we raise mostly goes towards paying our speakers' honorariums. So please take a moment to as well visit our website, homeasahumanright.com, and click the donate button and help fund our project.
Yes. Sounds good.
We fight because we're right.
Yes. And fight. Housing is a human
right.
Housing
Fight.
is a human right. Yes.
And I still love to say, don't forget